volunteers. If you'd like to know how you can be involved, call that number that's on the screen or go to the website. God bless you. Thank you.
Find any.
Breaking right now, tracking a tornado warning currently in effect, and it includes Sioux City, Iowa here. And you can see the heavy rain associated with this big line of storms. Tornadoes right now possible along this line. With the line and behind the line, the potential for damaging winds exists this evening and tonight. Seeing some snow, even some thunder snow associated with this system right now. But right here in Sioux City, Iowa, it is the tornado threat. And you can see this is a huge storm right here. This is just where it's raining and where there's thunderstorms, or where over here in blue there's snow, or even thunder snow right now. But what you don't see blowing here is the winds. You don't see that. What we do see is the rain associated with some strong storms that are going to produce some strong and damaging winds as this moves through. Eventually, as it moves out of this front line, moves out of Nebraska, it's going now into Iowa and eventually into Missouri as well from Kansas. Here's where there are severe thunderstorm watches here, tornado watches right here. Tornado watch, of course, means conditions are favorable for that type of weather for tornadoes. And this also is a look now at where that weather is either happening or it's about to happen. These are tornado warnings that are in effect. This one's for Sioux City right here. This also includes parts of Dakota, Union, and Woodbury. And we can see some of the rain associated with that right here. The velocity, as we look at it, you look at where there's some different colors, really bright colors right next to each other, sometimes blue, sometimes green. But then you also have some red really close to it. This is where winds are going really fast next to each other, and likely where the rotation is right now associated with this system. Again, here's now Plymouth and Woodbury, and we're seeing for Kingsley, Mobile, and Sloan as well. And then farther on down the line, moving through Nebraska here, Blair now into Iowa, Missouri Valley, also involved with this. Again, this is for parts of Harrison and Washington counties, Calhoun involved with this as well. So again, several tornado warnings currently in effect, and sometimes the velocity is really obvious, sometimes it's not. And right now what we see is a huge line of storms currently that is bringing with it the potential for tornadoes, along with that damaging wind threat right here. Mills, Montgomery, Pottawatomie counties as well, for Carson, Oakland, and Traynors, and this is until 5 o'clock. Again, this is a huge line of strong storms right now as this is moving in this direction. There's new tornado warnings. It seems like every other second a new tornado warning. Basically everything along this whole line, somewhere within there, there's some spin going on. Again, here's the timing for this from Oakland over to Anita as well, and Atlantic. The storm's heading your way. You're not going to avoid it. It's just whether or not you're on the straight line winds part of this, Jackie, or if you're going to get the rotation associated with some of the tornado warnings that are ongoing right now.
You know, our winds are really gusty, Chris, well ahead of that main line as well. And we want to get to our meteorologist, Mike Seidel, who is live in Des Moines right now. And we're still talking maybe 20, 30 minutes before the squall comes through there, Mike. But now we're getting reports on the northwest side of Des Moines that winds are strong enough. They're starting to down trees and cause power outages. I see your collar kind of flapping in the wind. How have things changed?
Well, it is certainly getting gustier. We've had wind gusts almost 50 miles an hour here at the airport, and there goes another pretty good gust right there. I might as well take this out or it's going to end up in the Quad Cities. One thing I want to tell you about is what's going on as far as the timing. I did a kind of a back-of-the-envelope calculation, and I'm figuring that the line of storms gets here on the southwest side at the airport here in Des Moines about 6 p.m. Central, so about another hour and a half. It may be a little sooner than that, but it's moving 70, 80 miles an hour and count on wind gusts between about 60 and 90 miles an hour. Look how fast that line is moving. I mean, you don't see this very often. And remember, these folks went through that horrible derecho in August of 2020. So when they hear winds like this, they get nervous. So this is on the way in here. We're going to be here to show it to you. We've got our safe place. In the meantime, the tornado watch till 8. Even after the tornado watch ends, we're going to have very strong straight line winds, maybe up to hurricane force through later on this evening. We're all over cover it here on the Weather Channel. We'll come back and update you on the latest as this line of storms heads towards Chicago and St. Louis overnight tonight. Stay with us here on the Weather Channel.
Give you a live look here of what's happening in Nebraska right now, where you can see the shaking on our camera here. We have multiple tornado warnings in effect across southeastern Nebraska, working east of Omaha into southwestern Iowa.
Breaking right now, several tornado warnings associated with a big area of low pressure that's working through the heartland right now. And that big area of low pressure also has some damaging winds associated with it. So the first thing you may notice, this curly Q, this comma mark here, this is the area of low pressure in here. This is an extremely potent area of low pressure that has some strong and damaging winds associated with this, and not even where the rain is right now. But then there are the official warnings. Now, there are warnings here. There are high wind warnings that you don't see here right now, but this is the severe thunderstorm warnings in yellow, and the red, the tornado warning. So tornadoes are either happening or they're about to happen, and severe thunderstorms are either happening or they're about to happen. And the watch speed conditions are favorable. These warnings mean that it is either happening or it's imminent. It's about to happen. And the storms just went through Sioux City, likely seeing some strong winds behind it. These storms are racing along, and depending on which part of the area of low pressure you're nearest to will depend which direction these storms are coming at you, either from the south or as we go down the line from the west as the system is pushing through. Here's Plymouth, Woodbury counties, and then a little bit farther to the south here. Again, if you're getting the sound of thunder off in the distance, if you are in the line of this line of storms, take shelter because this is moving so fast. Any one of these areas, anywhere along this, we can see a spin up. There is virtually tornado warning after tornado warning all along this line. Sometimes it's a lot more obvious, like right here, just west, kind of northwest of Elliott, where there's likely some of that rotation here in Iowa. And this, it's going to get very close to Atlantic. And regardless, again, there's some spin here, but anywhere along this whole line, as it moves off, there's the potential for damaging winds. Lowest level of your home, basement if you have it. If you don't, interior, most portion of your home, put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Now this part of the line is going more to a west to east angle here. That's again because this is all associated with this big area of low pressure as we track this down into so that the wow, look at this. The tornado warnings go almost the entire eastern border here of Nebraska with Missouri and Iowa. Again, these tornadoes.
Well, I'm reading some breaking news as far as the intensity of the storm that went through Mayfield, Kentucky, not far from where we're standing on Friday night. We now know it was 190 mile per hour winds with an EF4 tornado. That is the official rating from the National Weather Service. We're still learning more about that storm, but also the storm that came right through here, Dawson Springs, Kentucky. We're waiting to learn more about the rating for that one, but we now know, again, Mayfield, Kentucky's tornado was an EF4 packing 190 mile per hour winds. As far as the damage here, let me step out of the way because we're in a different part of town. If you've been sticking with us here on the Weather Channel to get a glimpse of what it's like in some of the neighborhoods, let's show you some of the businesses. You can see, first of all, where we're standing. This used to be a dance hall. A few years ago, it was the American Legion Hall. This is a place where people came weekly to square dance and enjoy themselves, and now you can see it is a complete loss. Looking across the street, you can see FEMA is set up over there, but also some other very large businesses, both destroyed. One is a distribution facility, and what's kind of haunting about that distribution facility is you can see all the infrastructure of the building kind of crumbled and mangled all around the contents of the building. All the goods that were being held there are now still there, but encased in all the debris that is the building. And really just kind of a startling view of what's going on. And as Mike Hall continues to pan back around, you can see another factory back there. That was the plastics plant. It's a complete loss as well. And just the utter devastation along Highway 62 going through the area here, Chris. So I'll tell you what, Chris, the more we move around town, the more devastation and demolition we see. Chris, into you.
That's such a sad situation. Still days now after the tornadoes, and the damage looks like it just happened just hours ago. I mean, it's so fresh still, unfortunately, here. There is, unfortunately, another severe weather and tornado threat right now. I want to show you the areas that are at risk tonight, where it is very likely, in fact, there's going to be some severe thunderstorms, and some of those may come in the form of tornadoes. This is the Torcon here. There are 5s, 4s, 3s, and 2s anywhere in here. If there's a number, there's a threat. The bigger the number, the bigger that threat. And within that is this big area of low pressure. On the leading edge of this big area of low pressure is where there continues to be tornado warning after tornado warning, almost the entire eastern border now of Nebraska going into Iowa. And they're happening again. It feels like almost every other minute we're seeing one of these tornado warnings. This one right here is the latest for parts of Cherokee, Ida, and Plymouth counties. This tornado warning in effect until 5:15. These storms are cruising along right now, and then there's going to be even stronger winds in some cases behind these storms.
I have my...
Currently in our area, 51 degrees under cloudy skies.
It's okay, I'm just sitting here. They're not.
Why is he moping?
He's being a brat. He wants you.
Periods of light
No,
rain
put him in
early,
the cage.
low 50. Chance
In a
of
minute,
rain,
Mama.
70%.
Cage, please.
Breaking right now, we're continuing to track numerous tornado warnings, most of which are now in Iowa. You're looking live here. This is in Kingsley, Iowa, one of our storm trackers, and you can see some of the damage that is already occurring. A lot of lightning. You can see some active lightning strikes. This is to the north and east of Sioux City, Iowa. So this is where that line of storms that has multiple tornado warnings on it is starting to move through. Now, we've got a couple of different issues and concerns here, not just the threat of tornadoes, but also of straight line damaging winds, some of which will be associated with thunderstorms, but some of which will be not associated with thunderstorms at all behind that line. So we don't want folks to let their guard down, because we've got a long evening ahead of us with the threat of strong and damaging winds. Want to get right to our meteorologist, Chris Warren. He is on the radar tonight. And Chris, it's difficult to keep up with these warnings because these storms are moving so fast that our warnings are only lasting about 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's why I really just want to say that if you're, within this line, treat it like a tornado warning, because by the time you get the warning, then it's a tornado warning. It might be too late, because there's so much going on right now, and the line itself can be damaging just like a tornado. So with that camera we were just looking at, here's Sioux City, here's Pearson, and that camera was, I believe, somewhere in here. And you can see what's going on right now on the radar. So somewhere, I think, in here is where that camera was, with all of the lightning going on around it. Again, this is one of many tornado warnings. And as Jackie mentioned, it is one after another associated with this big area of low pressure. So right now, I think the safest thing to say is if you are in western Iowa, anywhere in here, prepare for a tornado. Anywhere along this line, prepare for straight line winds that could be damaging like a tornado. These winds are extremely strong. We've seen already some winds gusting just associated with this big area of low pressure. Some of these winds gusting closer to 100 miles an hour. And some of these individual storms are moving about 75 to 80 miles an hour. And within that line, there's these little spin ups. So here's out ahead of it, Atlantic. It is heading your way right now. Again, a tornado warning currently. And one scan, there might be a really obvious spin. Another one, there might not be. These happen very quickly. Again, back up here. This is southeast now of Sioux City in Cherokee, Ida, and Plymouth counties. Now Sioux Center, Spencer. Eventually the storms are heading your way. Farther on down the line here, Topeka, Maryville. Again, the tornado warnings embedded within this line, or within severe thunderstorm warnings. Again, this whole line has the potential for bringing some damaging winds, and you can see that right here. big area of low pressure. To give you an idea how quickly this is going to be moving, the high-resolution future radar shows that Des Moines, in the next couple of hours, we're going to see it moving toward you. Minneapolis as well. A lot of these areas of Minnesota have snow on the ground, by the way, with a very potent area of low pressure. And again, all within this, Jackie, there are strong winds whipping up and around this area of low pressure.
Yeah, hey, Chris, I just want to mention that Atlantic tornado that you were talking about, that warning there in Cass County in southwestern Iowa. We now have an observed and confirmed tornado with that one. So if you live in Atlantic, if you live in Griswold, if you live in Marnie, you need to be taking shelter right now and get to your safe place. So this is starting to get a little bit closer to the Des Moines metro area right now, where they've already seen some very strong wind gusts out ahead of the main line of storms that's going to be pushing on through. That's where we find our meteorologist Mike Seidel with a closer look at what's happening right now. And Mike, I know you are nearby a shelter so that you can get to a safe place, because those storms are just about on top of you. They're getting close.
Yeah, about 70 miles away from the Atlantic tornado that's been confirmed. So I'm keeping an eye on the radar. We've got our safe place here at the hotel. We're going to be watching this area here out to the west and southwest, right across the runways at the Des Moines Airport. That's where it's going to be coming from. We'll see some lightning. There's not a lot of lightning, not like sometimes you see in the summertime. Although today, with temperatures in the mid-70s, just incredible. It feels like April here. The average high today, 36. It was almost 40 degrees warmer. So we're going to watch the radar and keep you safe. We've got those tornado warnings that Chris has just mentioned. Cass County, those areas, about 70 miles from us. So we're giving this until about 5:30, 5:45, about 45 minutes or so. That line's going to be on top of us. It's quick hitting, but it's potent. We've had wind gusts to 92, 93 miles an hour in Lincoln, Nebraska. Stay with us, continuing coverage throughout this evening, right here on the Weather Channel.
Breaking right now on the Weather Channel, tracking a dangerous storm right now, a big area of low pressure in the heartland that has a lot of tornado warnings associated with it and a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings. Here is the big wind maker that is creating some very strong and damaging winds across several states, and it's the leading edge of this where there's also severe weather ongoing right now, damaging winds, possible tornadoes, and a lot of and frequent lightning associated with this, 5 to even 80 miles an hour. This one, Plymouth and Woodbury. The wider look, again, we're going to check back with meteorologist Mike Seidel, who is live in Des Moines, Iowa, and these storms heading in his direction. And all along this line, you look at this, it's not a perfect, you look at the yellow, it's not a perfect straight line, right, where some of the heavier rain is. There are these ins and the outs, and every once in a while, some of these notches are where there is spin going on, and that's where there may be an embedded tornado. Again, tornado warning stretching all the way along up to this point, here and up here. So huge stretches here, possibly rotating. And so when you do it like that, it's almost the entire line has spin involved in it. Maryville as well here, getting into the northwest part of Missouri. Heads up, severe thunderstorm warning for you, and a tornado warning as well. Here in Jackson, Jefferson, and Shawnee, severe thunderstorm warning currently in effect and moving near Topeka as well, just outside of Topeka. There's that tornado warning that includes Maryville, Iowa, and Polk for parts of Andrew, Holt, and Nottoway counties. And again, the big view showing a big line of severe weather that is heading off to the east. When we look at the high-resolution future radar, Central Time, here's 6 o'clock. Let's see how this plays out. You can see through Des Moines by about 7, maybe sooner. These are moving very fast. Some nasty weather heading to Minneapolis. Areas in Minnesota with snow on the ground could have severe weather. Continuing on through time here, 9 o'clock in the evening, the storm still has a pretty thin line associated with it. Again, the tornado threat exists where there is snow. There has been snow lately, and some still on the ground. Today into tonight, it is very likely we're going to be seeing some severe weather. We are seeing that right now. Another look at our torcons here is high of of 5 here. Again, the bigger the number, the bigger the threat going into this evening. Tornado watches. The Storm Prediction Center has issued watches, meaning the conditions are favorable. This includes Des Moines down to Kansas City for either severe weather or tornadoes. And really, this whole northern part of the line has spins associated with it. So let's go back right now to get some perspective live from Des Moines, Iowa, with meteorologist Mike Seidel. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Chris, we're watching the skies as they get dark. Of course, the sun sets awfully early here in December. I want to show you how fast these clouds are moving over us here on the avenue just outside the airport, Pearl Boulevard. Look at the speed here. And remember, the winds aloft are much stronger. Incredible dynamic system with a very strong jet. And that wind's going to get mixed down. Even after the squall line goes through, we're going to have strong winds as we go through 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock tonight. So just because the front's coming through with the squall line, it's not over with. A lot of times the winds back off and you can rest easy, but we're going to have the straight line winds continuing to cause issues. Power lines, trees coming down on power lines already in the area. Colorado, New Mexico, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and also in parts of Iowa. We've got over 250,000 customers without power. Those numbers are going up very rapidly. You can see the spin in the atmosphere, so that squall line is coming in from this direction, looking over the airport runways. We just saw a plane take off, looked like it was hanging in there. We just talked to a couple of pilots who are supposed to take off in about an hour, and they're watching, obviously, the weather very closely. So very dark, ominous sky. Still a little too far away to see any lightning at this point. We're still about 60 or so miles away from the leading edge. So I say we're going to time this out. I'm at the southwest side of Des Moines. It's 5:03 Central Time. I'm thinking around 5:30 to 5:45 it comes in here. And remember, we have that torque line of 5. We've got several tornado warnings. We've had at least a couple actually cited. So the tornado threat will continue until the line goes through. Now, once the line goes through again, I just want to reemphasize, we're not done with the wind, Jackie. We're going to have those strong winds into at least later on this evening, and that means more damage potential and also more power outages. The other thing that's going to change, today we set the all-time December high temperature in the mid-70s, but Jackie, by tomorrow morning, we're going to be down around 30 with a wind chill about 20. So you go from the short sleeve polo shirt to the parka tomorrow morning here in Des Moines. Jackie?
Really some wild weather, that's for sure, and what may be unprecedented in some areas. Thanks so much, Mike Seidel, reporting live for us in Des Moines. Got about a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. I just talked to my girlfriend in West Des Moines, and I told her, just get to your basement and hang out there and wait for the storm to be over with. But Mike makes a really good point that while the worst of the winds are likely going to be with this squall, back in here, we could still see some wind gusts 40, 60 miles per hour, and that can cause damage, and especially if this line already brings compromised conditions, kind of hanging tree limbs or partial damage to homes, keep in mind that it's going to take less wind, and that's what we can see back behind it to cause additional damage. So huge squall line that stretches over 350 miles with wall-to-wall warnings upon that. I would treat all the warnings today like tornado warnings because the winds are that strong, as much as 70, maybe as much as 90 miles per hour as they rock on through. This is a look at all the damage reports just in the last 6 hours, and notice that that line still hasn't even hit the Des Moines metro area yet, and we're getting wind damage out ahead of it that aren't even related to some of the thunderstorms. This is not just an Iowa, Nebraska problem right now. This has been ongoing all day. We've had 100+ mile per hour wind gusts in parts of Colorado today along the Front Range. So this is going to be a quick-moving system. That's the good news out of all this, but it's going to be widespread. If you're in the path of that squall line at all, it is likely you're going to get damaging winds, and be prepared to lose power as a result as well. Embedded within there, we've got our tornado warnings, and that risk is going to continue here through the evening. Torcons of 4 and 5. This is very unusual to get tornadoes or even have that risk this time of the year that far north. We would expect them more into the mid or the deep south, not into Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska. Minnesota has never reported a tornado in the month of December. That could happen later on this evening. We'll see. Right now, a lot of that energy is ripping through Iowa, but southern Minnesota, incredible to see torcons on top of where we have some of that snowpack. So as we time this out moving forward for the rest rest of the evening and tonight. I just want you to remember that our models are a little bit slow, I think, with this. So be prepared ahead of time. Don't wait, because these storms are moving as much as 80 miles per hour and beyond. We even had one tornado that was moving at 100 miles per hour in Nebraska earlier on. So you cannot outrun these. You cannot outdrive these things. Get off the road. Stay at home tonight. This pushes into Wisconsin by 8, 9 o'clock across parts of Illinois. Beyond that, midnight, even though the storms are out of here, we're still going to have some strong winds that are going to last till maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, Chris. And then we'll watch those winds slowly but gradually begin to die down. And the temperature begins to drop. I mean, we have near blizzard conditions right now in parts of Nebraska and South Dakota. It's a big mess out there as well with snow squall warnings.
It is absolutely amazing right now to see all that's going on. Look at this. Could you imagine what it would be like to be in that big rig? Cheyenne, Wyoming here. This courtesy of the Wyoming Department of Transportation. The clouds overhead, not a raindrop inside. It's these strong winds associated with the same area of low pressure that's creating the severe weather right now in the heartland. And look, you don't really notice the winds until, of course, and obviously the truck goes over broadside blow here, and then it hits the ground. See how the dust going up? Some serious and intense winds. This looks more like a tropical storm right now, and I don't even know if there's even, I think that is rain too. But with the thunderstorms that have been coming through, we've been seeing scenes like this where it's been dust instead of rain. But this here in Lincoln appears to be some of the rain as the storms were going through. So getting new video into the Weather Channel right now, trying to give you the overall view, the overall perspective with exactly what we're dealing with. We're looking at the wind threat in terms of the severe weather and just the area of low pressure itself. This is phenomenal to see the extent of the high wind warnings that are currently in place from West Texas, the Panhandle, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, all the way over to Michigan. The entire state of Wisconsin, almost the entire state of Iowa, almost the entire state of South Dakota, the entire state of Nebraska, most of Kansas, the eastern half of Colorado, under high wind warnings, expecting dangerous winds associated with the area of low pressure. And within this area, within that area, is this tornado threat, severe thunderstorm threat here, severe thunderstorm watches, tornado watches here. This is showing us now where parts of Nebraska at the same time today, there is critical fire potential, all wind driven. Ahead of the front though, there is some very warm air as well. So these winds are serious, they have been serious. Lamar, Colorado, today a wind report of 107 miles an hour. That's getting out into the plains. Now, Boulder 91, the Air Force Academy 100. These are some very strong winds, upwards of hurricane force winds. With all of those reports, this makes sense. Now, up to more than 310,000 customers without power in Colorado, where the winds hit first. Some of the strongest winds hit first at the lion's share, over 108,000. Here's a look at some of the latest reports here. Wichita gusting to 53. Dodge City gusting to 31, heading up closer to the low. Again, there's going to be stronger winds associated with the front of the line here as it moves into Iowa. But just ahead of it, the warm winds coming out of the south, gusting to 40. The cold winds coming out of the north and northwest, gusting to 55 in North Platte. Absolutely amazing here, Jackie, to see the difference just with Nebraska as sort of the template for every type of weather you can see.
It's just incredible. We've seen that before where we have severe weather and snow very close together, but I don't know if you recall, I don't recall ever having a setup where we have snow on the ground and a tornado risk as well.
Yeah, I think it's hard to overestimate how big and how powerful this low is.
So many aspects of it. So widespread too, right? And such a fast mover. You know, any one of these individual hazards is dangerous and kind of scary overall. But when you think of all the different elements together on this, it's kind of mind-boggling. So take the warning seriously. seriously today. Want to time things out for you. We'll go back into the Des Moines metro area, talk about your risk here. Farther south you are, the lower your risk is, but you still have torcons of 2 and 3 in places like Ottumwa. So the latest timing of all this, we just updated our high-risk future radar, bringing it into the Des Moines metro area. I think this still could be off a little bit slow. So I would be prepared by about, 20 minutes ahead of what this is saying. So I would say be ready more like 6:30, 6:45. Marshalltown, Waterloo, this could be moving through by 7, 8 o'clock, heading towards Iowa City and then working towards the Quad Cities, maybe 9, 10 o'clock for tonight. But one of the big things we just really want to point out is look at the winds continuing even after the storms stop. So your storms will likely be done by about 8 o'clock or so, but we could still have 50 to 60 mile per hour winds continuing through perhaps midnight, even 1 o'clock in the morning, and still breezy beyond that into tomorrow. What about the Twin Cities? The storm's still a little ways away for you. You've got torcons of 2 and 3 here. Northern parts of the metro look a little bit better maybe than southern parts of the metro. And here we go. By 7, 8 o'clock, we're expecting that line of storms to begin to push through the area. Damaging winds, a good possibility. A few embedded tornadoes will be possible. So this is one of the areas where you've got snow on the ground, and we're talking about severe weather likely rocking through your area. You had record highs here too across southern parts of Minnesota into the 50s, not quite the 70s that they saw in Iowa. That's the difference the snowpack can make there, Chris.
Got a look now at the overall big picture as it relates to the severe weather in Iowa. And right now, from the southern border with Missouri all the way up to Minnesota, there is a very dangerous line of storms within an area Storm Prediction Center has highlighted as conditions favorable for the development of tornadoes. Tornado warnings, meaning tornadoes are either happening or about to happen at any moment. It's imminent. Now Des Moines getting closer to being under that threat, as you see right here, getting close with the severe thunderstorm warnings. And what we've been seeing quite often is that the warnings for severe weather, damaging winds out ahead of the main line